is being held in the West Mifflin Area Middle School, 80 12th Avenue, West Mifflin, PA, 15122. Meeting begins at 7 p.m. Opening exercises, pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Alexandra. Here. Bennett.
Here.
Engler.
Here.
Stein.
Here.
Marshall. Present. Mattis. DeSenza. And Blazevich.
Here. Presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we'd like to show appreciation for our student board representatives by giving them a small gift and also a certificate of recognition. Jorge Sanchez. We also have Aiden Blazevich. Aiden, would you please come up?
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Congratulations, Aiden.
I just have a few quick updates from the school, but before I begin, since this is my last meeting with everyone, I just wanted to say a quick thank you for the opportunity to be a student representative. I found it to be very rewarding and interesting to be in a position that allows me to truly see the issues in the community, as well as how everything falls into place. I also appreciate the time and dedication it takes from all of you to lead your positions within the community, as it is not an easy task. Now that I've said my goodbyes, I have to touch up on to wrap up the end of the school year. National Honor Society ceremony and senior recognition, which went very successfully. Each student was given a slide on a PowerPoint to be recognized for their hardworking, community-oriented leadership. Also, tomorrow is the last day for seniors to order their class t-shirts.
The online order form can be found on Schoology, and if you have any questions, please see Mr. Nixie. Next, the Emerging Leaders Program at the high school is looking for juniors to apply. The program assists students with college applications, military prep. If a parent or student is interested, feel free to grab a flyer 219 or view the recent Schoology post. Additionally, cheerleading tryouts are approaching, and the athletic office needs any student wishing to sign up by Tuesday, May 25th. And lastly, the high school student council participated in Staff Appreciation Day and handed out gifts to the custodians and bus drivers, as well as held a luncheon for the teachers. They appreciate all the hard work and dedication it takes to keep the district running smooth, especially throughout this school year. This concludes everything I have to report. Does anyone have any questions?
How did the outdoor prom go?
Oh, I didn't go, but I assume it went good, so.
Your friends said some good stuff to you?
Yeah. Anything else?
Best of luck in fall.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Anything else?
Aiden, thank you very much. It's very much appreciate all the information that you and your partner has given us all along. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Aiden.
Our second, Mr. Joe Esper, will be giving a 2021 budget presentation this evening.
Good evening. You guys all have handouts, but it's on the screen behind you, and hopefully those watching at home can see it. This is the budget presentation for the 21-22 school year. This is the proposed budget. Okay, budgetary highlights. Revenues are projected at $61,056,815, with expenditures equaling the same, which equals a balanced budget. Budgetary highlights continue. The total revenue expenses increased by $3.06 million from the 2021 budget, and that is driven primarily by ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 monies that we're projected to receive. We don't have all all those sources allocated at this time, but they are reflected in the revenue and the expenditure items. And as we actually write the ESSER 3 grant, we'll decide how we're going to allocate that money and what strings we want to attach it to. The millage remains at 25.3765%, so there is no tax increase in this proposed budget. We reduced professional staff by a total of 12, the maintenance department by 1, and secretarial staff by 1 through an early retirement incentive. That early retirement incentive netted a savings of $1.55 million. The PSERS rate increased to 34.9 last year. Healthcare increase. If you recall, last year, the initial projection is an increase of 3.5%. ASHA came back and lowered that to 2.5%, but they made it up this year. That was 5%. That's been the highest tax or health insurance increase in a very long time. And vision increased by 7%, which was the same that it increased last year. There was no increase in dental. Now, these are revenue positives. I'm benchmarking these against what we budgeted for last year. So in this year's budget was a $4.6 million increase in basic education funding. Real estate taxes are budgeted at $1.29 million, greater than last year. Now, as you remember, I went through an extensive 5-year average collection rate, made the assumption it would see at least a 5% reduction in real estate taxes due to COVID. And actually, I'm happy to report I was wrong. So our real estate tax revenue actually came on. We received the average, so it did not appear that there was little to no impact on real estate tax collection rates due to COVID. So this year, what I did was I used the same numbers that we collected for next year's budget. Now, our assessed value had gone down since May 15th of 2020, over $17 million from that point. The borough and the district teamed up and were actively appealing all home sales over the last 2 or 3 years. And we feel that at a minimum, a very conservative estimate, that we will get back, recoup that $17 million. We think, but so I left the real estate tax collection like last year at the same assessed value. Obviously, any numbers greater than that will help us. Any numbers less. To put it in perspective, if we're unsuccessful and it stays exactly where it is right now, that would cost us $440. So half of that would recoup $220. It's not a huge number, but we feel that we'll reach that and surpass it. Special education funding went up $500,000. Now, these are the revenue negatives. Again, benchmark against what was budgeted last year. We're losing 35 to 36 Duquesne students next year. Projected, hasn't been determined for sure yet, but that's going to cost us $500,000 in tuition from Duquesne. If you recall, last year I budgeted $300,000 for the admissions tax, which is from Kennywood. I was concerned about that number, but that was a 10% reduction from the previous year, and it came in about $50,000 this year. So I set it at $100,000 going into the next year. I think that's a very attainable goal, but because we don't know the future of COVID and whether Kennedy is going to stay open, I thought it was prudent to reduce that. The business privilege tax is, we have 2 business taxes. One's mercantile tax and one is the business privilege tax. Mercantile taxes are tax against sales. Business privilege tax is tax against services. So contractors, people who own garages, they pay a business privilege tax. We did notice a $175,000 decrease as it's tracking this year, so I reduced that business privilege tax by $175,000. I'm happy to report all other revenue sources are tracking spot on to what was budgeted last year. So The main one being earned income tax. I budgeted for a 10% reduction in earned income tax collection, and it's tracking exactly on that rate. In the mercantile tax, same last year was budgeted, they did a 10% reduction. We're keeping that reduction in because that number seems to be a good number. Obviously, any positives in the economy will help us achieve those goals and surpass them, but I think we're still in an iffy area, so I think that those numbers are pretty. So these are budgetary pressures. Although we did have a retirement incentive, it did save us a substantial amount of money. We had contractual salary increases in this year's budget of $585,000. The PSER's contribution of that increase is $205,000. Social Security is $45,000. That's broken down roughly 68% teachers' salaries, 15% in administration, 17% other. We saw about an increase of $146,000 in healthcare insurance going into this year. And that is factoring all the retirements that we had, because obviously those people are going to be off of our healthcare books. And then the increase in the total PSER's payroll was roughly about $85,000. Now this is the big one. This was the big mess last year. This year's budget had a cyber charter increase of $1.2 million. So the total budget for cyber charter schools is $2.9 million in this year's budget. We have a very great plan in place to help curtail that and hopefully reduce that number. But when you budget, you got to budget. Not worst case scenario, because I could make that higher and say it's going to be worse. But I think if we're unsuccessful, that's about what the cost will be. I think we'll be successful. I think the program that we have in place is fantastic. And so hopefully that's going to be an overshoot on the expense side. The debt service is at $6,858,634. That's an increase of $87,951, not against last year's budgeted number, but against what we actually paid. We actually did see savings with the bond refinance, and so we are paying more than we're going to pay more than what we paid, but that is not benchmarked against the budget number. That number would be actually a decrease. So this is the pie. Most of these items we have very little wiggle room. These are 6 items that make up 85.5% of the budget. Salaries is 33.2, benefits 19.8, bonds 11.2, cyber charters 8.2, other professional services. That includes the AIU, or guidance contractors, psychologists, dental, nursing, medical, law, legal fees, and then busing is 5.3%. Salaries going into the future, we can adjust those with more retirements and possible furloughs. Bond payments we have no control over. The cyber charter, APS is still center. Hopefully we're successful and that number can lower. The other professional services, we can play with, hopefully lower that a little bit going into the future, and we're trying to look at busing, save busing costs. But there's not a whole lot of wiggle room within this budget or any budget. That's most of it. Now, in this budget, once it's posted online, you'll see a business office miscellaneous expenses. I'm not off the top of my head exactly what that number was, but it's made up of 3 primary components. We're hiring 2 staff accountants tonight that are on the agenda. We need to fill 4 custodial positions. We need to fill 1 secretarial position. So those are the salaries and benefits of these vacant positions. Why they're not movement just recently with people changing. And the budget in the school district, every person has its own string, we call them, which shows what building they're at, what grade level they're at, what class they're teaching in some degrees. And so with the custodials, we got some movement, like I said, so now it's created vacancy, so we'll post it. And so that's in there now. We talked about I talked a little bit about the ESSER money. I have to show that as an expense. Because if I show it as a revenue and I don't show it as an expense, then it looks like we're going to $3 million to the good, which we know is not true. So in there's $625,832 ESSER 2 money and $2 million in ESSER 3. We're getting a little over $6 million. So we're figuring that we spend about $2 million a year over the next 3 years in ESSER 2 money. These are some headwinds, declining enrollment. 2016, we had 2,754 students. Enrollment right now is at 2,469-ish. That's a 10.35% decrease. If Duquesne is successful in taking their students, that number will drop by 35 to 36. Contractual salary increases for 22 and 23 is 1.15 million. We have a number of teachers this year that hit the first jump step. And there'll be, I think that was about 23, so they'll be hitting step 17, which is another jump step. This is $13,333 per teacher. We have, so they'll be moving up, and then we have 20 more teachers that will jump to step 16 at $13,333. And I sort of estimated the average raises for the rest of the staff. So that's a pretty big end we're going to have to deal with. PSERS, these are projected PSERS increases. It actually came in 0.01% less than what was projected. So they actually projected 34.95, came in 34.94. Those figures will track. You know, the only way we can lower PSERS is by having less people paying into PSERS. Healthcare, you know, hopefully that 5% increase, that's one and done. I was on a meeting with Ashton. It was a virtual meeting. And they did a very good job. They got a lot of heat over that 5% increase because a lot of districts were struggling. And that's a pretty big number, you know, especially if you have a larger school district than ours. And special education costs. Leah Silvis did a very good job this year. She was able to find some services that were substantially cheaper than what we were currently paying for, so that is reflected in that budget. However, you know, we'll continue to look. I know she works hard at it, and but I still see over the future those special education costs increasing. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank actually all the department heads and all the secretaries in the district who have some ability to buy. I think everybody, they bought in. You'll hear me talk about the buy-in. I think this administration and their staff, everybody's buying into and we're not spending any money unless we absolutely have to, unless it's for the kids and education. But they've done a very good job at maintaining their supplies, using inventories that we have, and really truly buy what we need. We started a salary purchasing freeze last April, March. We're still sort of under that. Everybody knows that what we're not buying unless we absolutely need it. That's out of time. So I got to thank everybody who has that. It makes my job a lot easier. Telling people no all day isn't fun all the time, but people understand, and usually when someone asks, it's reasonable.
I'd like to ask our solicitors a question about the legal issues with PSERS right now. Harry Thompson asked me about it, and I don't have an answer. Are there concerns based on the potential malfeasance that's going on with it, that at the end of the day, they would, if anything bad would happen, they would pass it along to all the school districts? Is that something we need to be concerned about long term?
Yes, of course, I think we have to be concerned about PSERS always. And last time this happened, it was forced on us, and we had bigger chunks than we're seeing in this budget in the past 10 years. As you know, Dave, I think you've seen how it's increased greatly over the last 10 years. I would hope that at least it would be on a slower end than it was last time. There were some big jumps in that last time. But we can't predict the future. We'll have to let that play out. But I know that Joe constantly watches that. I constantly watch that. I think we're a couple years away from that. But let's hope we can avoid it altogether. But I do think that obviously, if they have to make it up, they're not gonna make it up on their own.
Thank you.
Joe, thank you for putting all this together, appreciate it.
Sure.
I just have a real simple question for maybe the folks at home, some folks in the audience. What's PSERS?
That's a retirement system.
That's retirement that we pay into for our professionals.
State employees retirement system, all employees contribute. And there's different tiers based on when you were hired. So people who were hired, I got hired after it changed again, so I'm on a different tier. I think we're going to see an increase in our contribution, so they have some ability to charge the employees more. There's also hybrid plans now. Every, prior to, I guess this year was the defined benefit plan. So you paid in, you got to take your money out when you retire, and you got a monthly check. Now you can have a hybrid, or you can go all like a 401k, which is matched by the districts.
And is this something that's in the contract? Like, is this set in the contract or is this set by the state?
The rates? Yeah, the state sets the retirement plan. So when they decide, I mean, it would have to pass, the House and the Senate. They do change it, but
And the most alarming thing is when the PSER issue happened, it was close to 0% was given. That was 20-some years ago. Now we're up to 30-some% of what everybody makes. And that just horrifies me long-term to think that that's going to be passed on to the taxpayer.
Right. Well, when we look at the percentage, 33, 34%, that's what the school district pays into the retirement plan. That's 33% of the professional's salary. Right?
yeah, now there is revenue. We do get reimbursed half of that.
Okay.
So our
From the state.
our PSERS revenue is going to go down in this year's budget because our PSERS contributions are going down as a result of all the retirements. And the same with Social Security, we get about 50% reimbursement for Social Security. We'll see the same reduction if we account for that in both of those categories. And again, keep in mind, if you take the ESSER's money out, we saw no increase. And as much as we did, and as hard as we worked to make cuts and work with the unions and have people retire and not have to replace them, we stayed flat, basically. So the budget last year was $57,995,350. So you add the $3 million in ESSER money onto that, and we're just a little bit over that. So we work with Mr. Souls, Mr. Solomon, certain administrators, we work every single day. And when I tell you every single day, we're trying to find ways to do things more efficiently and do things less expensive without sacrificing education at all.
One of the things that, I guess we're in questions and comments period on this, but one of the things that sticks out in my mind on slide 13, 2754 enrollment, dropping down to the 2469 enrollment 2020. But what we really need to add on to that is the summer enrollment because we still pay for those students. So our enrollment buildings is 2469, right? But we're not including in that number cyber enrollment or our.
No.
If they're in our cyber school, they count against our enrollment.
The 24/6.
If they're an outside cyber,
Correct.
they count against those dollars.
And the cyber charter increase of 1.2 million that we're projecting on slide 10.
Yeah,
Total
that's
budget
about
of 22.9 million
Yeah.
for the cyber, for not our cyber students, for external
yes,
cyber
that's not our
students.
cyber. That is
Right.
outside.
We are still paying that tuition to those tuition-free schools that they like to say on. Correct. Okay. So our enrollment and our down, we are paying overhead for all of these big buildings that we don't need anymore. And we're still paying tuition to students who live in our district that are going to online cyber schools at a rate of what, like 14,000 students per year or something like that? Is it more?
That's for the regular, yes.
And special ed, I think it's closer to 28.
28,000 for one student who doesn't go to West Mifflin, but lives in West Mifflin and goes to a charter school.
And it's, Joanne DeClaire, she's our PIMS coordinator, and I tell her all the time, you're like a detective, because it's a daily, you're a detective, people move out, you don't get notified, you're still paying for them, she's constantly battling with these cyber charter schools, uncovering people who moved, I mean, it's crazy the amount of work that she does to make sure that it's right.
And this includes our investment in the Titan Cyber Academy, which is going to be starting in the fall, in hopes that we can start to recoup some of these students that we potentially lost to COVID, to these cyber charter schools, therefore reducing that tuition
Yes.
over time, therefore actually bringing money back into our district and most likely providing better educational experience than what I've heard some of these cyber schools, online cyber schools specifically.
I'm not by any means an expert in that, that would be Mr. Sewell and Mrs. Solomon, but I can tell you that we can offer something that nobody else can.
Right. The hybrid model with the
Yep.
in and out plus activities, athletics.
Nobody else can offer for you to come and take the, or take an elective or whatever you want.
And yeah, and tech ed, right? Because we pay that no matter what. No, I appreciate that. I'll get off my soapbox and.
No, God, I'll stay here tonight.
Joe, in regards to the addition that we expected to get from Kenwood, when we anticipated 300,000 and only got 50, is there some sort of an appeal or dispute that we can file?
That's just based off of commissions, they just didn't sell, they were closed.
Thank you.
So I just want to thank you and the staff for putting this together. When a few months ago, we decided to send out furlough letters, everybody panicked, and you were able to balance the budget without losing your own teacher. Thank you for all that.
I mean, I know, and again, Mr. Sewell and Mr. Solomon, worked with the unions, the teachers union, and looked at staffing issues and got very creative. And so we only had to replace one teacher, and that's a huge help. I couldn't imagine my conversation right now I'd be having with you if we didn't do that.
Just to touch on one more subject, so the plans for the 7th and 8th grade Duquesne students back into Duquesne, that's still continuing, those talks are still continuing. And we're planning for that to happen for the 7th grade only this coming fall, and then the 8th grade that follow the fall, correct?
That is correct. As we recall last week, Dr. Mifflin gave his presentation on the math people. We do have contingencies for those students who are coming back in August, 7th grade this year, 8th grade the fall.
And so, and we've worked together, but I just want to make it clear to folks out in the seats, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of creativity that's had to happen, especially with COVID, not knowing what might come in, not knowing what might not come in, not knowing what students might come back or not come back, and trying to make this as attractive of an educational experience and as an efficient as an educational experience as possible with the tools that we have, given all of these constraints placed on this administration from external forces, challenges, users and everything else. So I do appreciate you and the administrative staff putting all of this together for us and working with the unions especially and their willingness to work with us too. Because, it's challenging. Anybody that's sat in this seat knows it's challenging. And I do respect all of you very much for working on this so hard the last 6 months.
Just tell your daughter happy birthday, 18th birthday. Thank you for coming in here. I hope you get home in enough time to do it.
Thanks.
Please speak in your mind, because I don't know if it's me, but some, it's a little bit hard to hear some of these songs.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Who can't you hear?
Well, a couple times you Up to you. All right.
She's lucky.
It might be my ears, I'm sorry.
We don't put dates like this on.
We'll speak up, Ruth Ann.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Esper.
Thanks. Mr. President, that concludes all the presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Solomon. Item number 3, addendum items.
Yes, Mr. President, we have 3 addendums for tonight's agenda. Under the business manager's report, 6A3 is recommended the board approve a right-of-way agreement with Duquesne Light due and value consideration of $6,675 for work to be done along Commonwealth Avenue pending the solicitor's approval. Number 4, it is recommended the board approve a temporary construction easement agreement with Jessica Cope for due and valuable consideration of $1 for work on a residential swimming pool. And number 5, it is recommended the board approve the revised 403B and 457 plan documents effective June 1st, 2021.
I'd like to make a motion to put the addendum on the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Marshall, second by Mrs. Castelnett. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Aaron,
Yes.
Alexandra,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
and Blazevich.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Souls. Number 4, hearing citizens, public comment. In order to speak at this time, the following must be met. Must be a West Mifflin, Whitaker, Duquesne resident. Matter must have been discussed through proper education channels. Direct comments to the board president or superintendent. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person. And if you have specific questions about the agenda, we will try to cover those as we work through the rest of the agenda. Would you please state your address when you come up to the microphone? Mark Uhas.
Mr. Milka, have this speaker back here humming.
Yeah, someone's cell phone is coming through the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Uhas.
Good evening, Mr. Blazevich. Hear me okay?
Yep.
I come to this meeting tonight, Mark Uhas, 1016 Dana Drive. I come to this meeting tonight because I have tried it your way. As far as we have, I've met with our superintendent and our business manager back in October. I talked to him many times on the phone, President Blazevich. I agreed to come to a meeting and share everything. And then last week, before the election, Miss Engler and her husband, the Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain, went out there and started openly lie. Right here on social media, I have it. We talked about how basically you haven't got financial statements, that basically I put together a group, a booster group, and haven't given any money out. There's supposed to be the endeavors and for the kids and for the students. Nobody got money. That's wrong. Call Mr. Ingles, tennis. You call Mr. Mayhall, basketball. You call, Mr. Selleck or Mr. Stevenson, basketball. Call Mr. Steele, football. I've given money out to everybody. Anybody can give it out to everybody. Then you accuse me of having a fundraiser that never went off, that never happened. The people requesting refunds and never got refunds. And that it's 2 years now and this event never went off. It's right on social media. And And basically, you call Dave Martin down, the volunteer fire department, he'll tell you I paid for a haul. There's people that showed up there, that I can give you just the names of people that came to the event. And then on top of that, I can show you statements of paying for the haul and for the food and the people that were there. Okay, so the event did go off, not like what you said on social media, it's 2 years now, it hasn't. There's refunds that haven't been given back, and you've been working so hard to try to get these refunds, and all you gotta do is call me. But you went back there and lied. And on top of that, you wanna come out there and say that you'll pay out of your pocket. It's what we just say, pay out of your pocket, we know you're lying. When you know the event took off, you know that nobody asked for a refund, and I've shown this over time. But you want to continue to lie. And it was all about trying to keep me from winning an election. And I understand that, but it didn't happen, it didn't work. And like I said, people, I'm running, I don't have a personal agenda. 6 months ago or 9 months ago, her and her husband were sitting there going to plan to know who the hell they were. And that's what's coming out there and attack me like she's like, known me for years. You don't know me, lady. But at the end of the day, I'll see you expose you for what you are, is a liar and fake. And your little husband, the little guy, how to cook the turkey.
Teresa Seckley.
Teresa Seckley, 110 Main Entrance Drive, West Mifflin. Couple of questions. I know we have a lot of teachers retiring. One of the things that kind of upset me is that some of us don't know who those teachers are. I found out just yesterday that one of the teachers that taught my daughter in elementary school is retiring, and she wanted to write that teacher a letter. As a parent of a child that's now in 10th grade, I think we should know who's retiring so that those kids can maybe reach out to that teacher, write them a letter, send them some few words. We've been able to do that in previous years. I know there were some students who are alumni of ours that were not able to attend Mr. Danchenko's last concert and were a little sad that they couldn't come. And some didn't even realize he was retiring. So I don't know if there's a way, Mr. Souls, we can put it on like, Facebook or something on the district website, thanking those teachers early enough so that these kids do have an opportunity, to show their appreciation, especially if they work with other students. The second thing on here is I see that they're gonna renew Mr. Eagle's contract. I have to tell you, my daughter to this day still sees him and knows who he is. I'm sure there's probably no question that he's not gonna get renewed, but I just want you to know that when he first started in this school district, there was a little boy who cried every day to go to school. And this is a kid that wanted to be a cop. First day, he met Mr. Eagle up at the middle school. Paul went to his vehicle and pulled out one of his police badges from the regular police department that he works at part-time and gave it to this kid. This kid no longer has anxiety. He did his police academy through. That's what Paul does for these kids. I'd hate to lose them. And last but not least, I see that we're changing the curriculum for K-8 now in regards to getting rid of iReady. What are we doing for 9 through 12? My daughter was fortunate this year that she was given the Alex program to do this year instead of iReady, and I have to tell you, it's phenomenal. I don't know what the plan is for 9 through 12. Mr. Souls, do you know?
We're gonna use the CDTs.
So they're changing it to a different program instead of,
Yes, we're gonna use what the state offers.
will the kids be allowed to access that since they'll have their devices prior to the end of the year?
That's what
I'm
I said.
just wondering, since they've lost so much education this year, I just think that maybe,
The CDT is not a supplemental instructional, it's a benchmarking tool. So that's what we use to benchmark our students to determine the supplemental and their instruction
so that'll replace iReady completely for high school as well?
for benchmarking, yes.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Mr. Souls, did you want to address the retirement announcement comment real quick? I think we just put the numbers in the agenda or on the agenda, right?
with large groups like that, with any staff, we don't know how they feel about it, so we do personnel numbers. That way, if they want to make it known, that's their business.
Right. Thank you. Harry Thompson?
Harry Thompson, 6679 Adams Avenue. Question for you about the Peasers. How come we keep getting people in there that seem to not know what they're doing and know how to do it, and it always costs us money? When you have somebody that works at a fire hall and steals money, they have to pay reparations. But somebody that works in government and does a poor job, they just get to walk away scot-free. I have an issue with every time they make a mistake, we pay for it. It's getting to be, I guess this is the director to Carisha. How come they keep getting away with this and we got to keep paying the anything on it? Any?
Well, I think sometimes it's hard to prove that there's actual wrongdoing. So the misinvestment of money is not necessarily illegal. We all take that risk when we enter into the stock market. The mismanagement of those funds is because they are not gaining the increased value that we're expecting them to get. So sometimes that's not really a legal issue. Sometimes that's just a financial bad marketing or bad investment tip. So I don't necessarily think they're taking that money or stealing that money. It's just not being invested in a way where it's gaining the increased value that we need to sustain the state employee system. So, and obviously that's something on the level of the state legislature, and the attorney general. The attorney general would have to look into to see if there was any type of, misappropriated or illegal activity. We as the local district don't have that authority, and I think we also hear and hope that the state officials do their job and look into these particular issues. But sometimes it's not a legal issue, sometimes it's a bad investment issue.
I understand. I'm just, it seems that when we had the crash before and we lost all that money, because they invested heavily in the high risk stocks, okay? So they keep making poor judgments. Now, if I make poor judgment, or you made a poor judgment, it would cost you money when your funds fit. But when they make poor judgment, we all have to. To me, maybe we need better qualified people to handle that job. That's all I'm saying. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
People are chosen by the legislature, and so I can't answer to that, but there are regulations on the type of risky funds that they put it in, and they have tightened down on that since the last time. Unfortunately, it looks like history might be repeating itself.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. It keeps repeating itself when we keep getting stuff. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry. Nikki Teabay?
Good evening, Nikki Teeley, 1949 Anna Avenue. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my spiel today. Today I'm here to address Titan TV in the social media department within the high school. My son Ryan Teeley is an 11th grade student at the high school and is very much involved in the TV program and social media program. He plans to pursue a degree in sports media with a digital media, social media minor. That being said, the school district is talking about hybrid students and how do we make the school district attractive for students coming in. In this new virtual world that we live in, post-pandemic, it has, exploded 10 years into the future. Digital and media is the way to connect, not only through our students who, I don't know if any of you have nieces, nephews, children, but they can work the phone and the computer 10 times faster and better and more efficiently than any of us adults. West Mifflin is getting younger. We have houses up for sale. We have new families coming in. As the generations become younger, media is the way they communicate. You have something already in your possession that you can use to reach the hybrid students and reach the greater community and show what West Mifflin District is doing. Not to mention the job growth in this area. Robert Morris University today announced that they added 9 new majors in the communications and media relations field. The estimated job growth is between 7 and 18%. Last year, 700 jobs alone in the city of Pittsburgh due to the large film industry were in a communications related field. Our district has put a lot of money into STEM and science and math, which is commendable, but that's one side of the spectrum. We have students that aren't good science and math students, but can excel in communications. Right now, the communications equipment is outdated. for the type of media that is needed nowadays. You may not have the budget to do that, and I understand, but please make use of the equipment that you do have. The TV department, it's a class, Titan TV, social media, it's a class. They try to do things, have interviews. They taped for ROTC. They taped for a virtual tour for middle school to come to high school. When those things are presented, they're not always taken as much as the students would like them to be. In other words, I'm asking, please make policies for what the to do. This is a student-run organization, student-run, give them something to use so they can use their talents. Give them a policy, what you expect from them, what they're allowed to present, what you don't want on media. We have a YouTube channel, no one uses it. Please consider it in your next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
I think we're videotaping for graduation.
Mr. Solomon's been working this year to really update and get the social media communication, our marketing out there. He's been working with Mr. Frisco, Mr. Mann, and so forth at the high school, as well as Dr. Medford and Mr. Benaki at the middle school, to do that communication piece and get that working. And I think we're making headway. We're not where we need to be, but we are addressing that need.
Mr. Schultz, can we use any of our ESSER money if it's for education to invest in for that type of program?
I don't know if it's specific for communication, but we can look at it as far as technology goes.
Okay.
We do have a couple of grants. We've made significant investment purchasing because I buy most of the stuff. And so both at the high school and the middle school, they've upgraded a lot of stuff in those areas.
Well, I do think, I brought this up last year as a young board member, or junior board member, but we do need to improve our communications and just general overall marketing of the school district itself and be better at, publishing and talking about and promoting all the good things that we do. We do have a lot of social media pages and a lot of avenues and outlets, and having a more formal process and giving students the opportunity to take advantage of that process, to publish items on behalf of the school district, given that they're approved and sanctioned and whatnot, would make a lot of sense, and I would totally support that. Maybe after this get over the COVID state of operating and back to some semblance of normal, we can maybe pick that back up.
Absolutely.
And just so we're clear, the investments were made to the TV studios. Cameras, new computer equipment. Correct, am I correct, Mr. Solomon?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Number 5, information items, there are none. 6, board secretary, business managers report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would respectfully request a motion second and approval on the following items. Item 6A, Board of Directors, numbers 1 and 2, which include the 3 addendums.
So moved.
I would like to do them all, yeah. Can we just do them all?
Did I not do it?
I mean, can we go through the whole thing?
Yeah, well, all the items were discussed, the first 2 were discussed at the work session, and then we discussed the 3 addendum items. So if you'd like to, the only addition is number 1, we have the stipend that Mrs. Butler receives.
This is for 6A, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
did I say that again?
No, you're right.
Yeah, 6A, items 1 through 5 on pages 1 and 2.
Do I have a motion?
By Dave, Mr. Marshall's motion.
Mr. Marshall, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Alexandrov. Any questions or comments on 6A? Call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Snellick,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis.
Yes.
Six B, items 1 through 5 are on page 2. All items were discussed last week at the work session.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mrs. Costello, second by Mrs. Ahern. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Snellick,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazen.
Yes.
6C, numbers 1 through 18 on pages 3 and 4. Items 1 through 6 were discussed last week. Item number 7 is to approve an agreement for Van Dyke Photography for photography services. That's a 3-year period at no cost to the district. Items 8, 9, 10, and 11 are all for the Power School. One's for Schoolology. One is the license for the SIS Enterprise Management Service. One's the Power School for PD Plus subscription and SIS maintenance and support. And the last one is Power School Schoology content subscription, professional learning, beginning September 9th, 2021. You can see that the dates vary. So some of these we could approve next year, but I'm trying to get these all on a school year renewal cycle. So that'll take care of that, at least for this year. Number 12 is Precision HR is our substitute service. We're extending their agreement for 1 year based on the terms and conditions of the most recent contract. There's no increase in price. Number 13, On-Hand School, it's a renewal. It's actually a 3-year renewal. I think if you remember last week, this is through Harris School Solutions, and I was looking back thinking that it was for our financial software. The financial software is renewed annually. This is a 3-year agreement from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024. At a cost of $29,187.31, $30,938.54, $31,866.70 respectively. Number 14 is agreement with EduTyping. This is for $200, cost of $1,198. This is a reduction of 120 licenses from the previous year. Number 15 and 16 are both the D'Agostino Electric Services. This is for the maintenance, hardware support of the district's telephone system, and for technical support. Number 17 is Interactive Services. This is for our website in the parent notification system. That's for next school year. And number 18 is just added late this afternoon. This is a replacement to iBoss, and it's for web filtering, license and support, which they call LineWise, classroom management software, which they call ClassWise, and the hardware, which is called I forget what it's called, but those all three combined for $14,875. That's
Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Alexandrov, second by Mr. Mattis.
Mr. Epler, may I ask you about
Questions or
number 18? Does that replace these, I believe we had issues with software last year where everybody had to bring their computers up because it wasn't able to hook up. Was it
I believe that issue was caused by the thing that this is replacing. I can't be 100% sure.
What number?
18. That was iBoss, was the software before. Now, keep in mind, these are both brokered or sold through the same company, Word Security, just changing products.
Service providers too. I believe it's a service provider too. That's fine. the seller is the same. The
Yeah.
service they're selling
Yeah,
is
the
different.
product, yeah, right.
Any other questions or comments?
I do not. In regards to C2, let me get so it's clear. I apologize because I would have brought it up at the work session, but the award of bids was not in board docs at the time of the work session, or I would have brought it up then. And my concern is that most of the bids for the athletics were comparable between like a couple hundred or a couple dollars between baseball and softball, for example. But for girls basketball, their bid award was for $1,300 and boys basketball was over $8,000. So I was wondering, I'm gonna motion to refrain from voting on this until we can be provided a list of details of all the goods and services for this. I just want to make sure that these kids are getting everything they need. I don't care about the dollar amount, but when there's almost a $7,000 discrepancy between two of the same sport.
Gina, just so I understand, do you want to let Joe answer your question and then make a motion?
Can you answer it, Joe?
Well, those were provided through the athletic department. Just because it's in there doesn't mean that they're going to get it. We still have the approval process. That they submit a PO, and we approve it or deny it. Like I told you earlier, I apologize not having the intimate details of that.
No, I'm sorry, I couldn't ask last week.
No, but I mean, we're going to assure that even if we budget for something and something breaks, I mean, we have to replace a lot of things that we don't budget for at times, and we just make it happen. But everything that comes through, whether it's budgeted or on that bid sheet, will be scrutinized at the highest level.
I have a question. Are we talking about something that's not in the agenda tonight?
No.
We're talking about number 2.
Yeah.
C2,
The amount of the bids was not available at the work session. It was only just put in, or I would have asked then. So I saw it last night.
Okay.
And there's just, as I said, it's almost a $7,000 difference between what the girls are allotted and what the boys are given for the same sport. And I just wanted to make sure that they're getting everything that they need in this
Is
comparison.
that supposedly covered in number 2, C2?
That's what we're talking about, yes.
But there's no mention of anything about basketball.
Well, that's because I looked, it was separate, but it's pertaining to that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
I think the item on the agenda is to give the approval to award to the lowest bidder and the ability to approve the purchasing. And we kind of leave it up to them to make that decision and determination when the bids come through and come up. Spending the money in the right way for the right things. If it's this year than it was last year, if we have to buy new stuff. I don't know, making it up, just assuming, but this isn't to approve specific
Yeah,
numbers.
just
this is
because it's
approve-
in the bid sheet doesn't mean anybody's getting what's in there.
Right, this is to approve you the ability to go do that work.
They still need to get. So there could be $30,000. I didn't have a chance to scrutinize that. I apologize.
No,
But, I'll do better next year at it.
The way that's worded, once the bids are accepted, and whoever's the lowest will be awarded that. It would not come back here. The way that it's written. It's to approve and award from the list. We don't know who those.
Yeah, but they still have to get the purchases approved for us.
Through the administration.
Yes. You still have to submit a purchase order.
But once you award a bid, you're entering into a contractual obligation.
I would just prefer to have a list, basically, a detailed list before I vote on something that's worded the way that this is. I apologize.
Gina, I think we're getting into I just want to be a little bit cautious about that because we don't approve everything that Joe approves every day.
No, I understand.
And I don't want to do
No,
that.
not at all, but I feel like it's too vague for what it's asking, and especially since no one seems to know about it. Maybe
that boys basketball does not have a booster group. The girls basketball team does. They purchased uniforms for the girls like they also did with football. By these booster groups stepping up, that saves us tax money. So it may be unfortunately that the boys basketball team has to come to us to get the uniforms, and that looks about what I would expect the price.
Thought the boys booster group was just here.
The boys don't have a booster group for basketball.
Oh, okay, I'm confused.
So
The
Joe,
girls do.
Joe,
Yes.
so Mr. Mayhaw would say he needed X, and Mr. Stevenson said he would need X. So that would be the company that would say, that's the lowest we can go. Do you know what I'm saying? And say Mr. Stevenson needed, I don't know, socks. And the girls' basketball team needed shoes. So they would come in as the lowest bidder for that item. That's how I'm reading that. Wouldn't they give you, like Mr. Stevenson would say, I need X, Y, and Z. Mr. Mayhaw would say, I need X, Y, and Z. And these are the companies that bid the lowest.
We still go through a purchase order approval process.
I understand
Like,
that.
it'd be like a bulk purchase order. We put down all our needs, they submit it out, the companies can see it.
And that's the
they
bid
respond
that they're
back.
giving,
Yes.
yes, that's what I was trying to say, but I was just.
I mean, so they get awarded the bid, but we still have to, I mean, what if we're out of money, we gotta cut costs?
So those numbers that were submitted, were they submitted by the basketball teams? Like there was only one,
It
2,100?
was, a wish list of things that they wanted to get prices on.
But it's not approved, it's not official, like, it's budgeted.
I'm not gonna argue with Chris on that, but I know we,
It's just the way that the, motion's written, is to approve the bids, rather than to, post the bids or to put out the bid.
we already put them out for bids.
So we are
These are-
awarding the bids. So we are agreeing to spend that money.
Jeannie, you want to make a motion to take this off of the agenda?
You already have a motion in a second.
A motion to table,
Yeah. So we
We have a motion on the table now.
but we have a motion and a second to approve all by Nick and John.
So what do we do as far as parliamentary practice?
Roll call. Understand.
Yeah, well, you can call for the motion, and then obviously if people don't want to vote for it, they can say no. And then perhaps if the motion would fail, people are interested in Ms. Eglert's.
So that just wouldn't pass two, you wouldn't vote for number two.
Correct.
I got you. Any more questions or comments? Is that clear? Did you understand? That we're gonna proceed and then just people will feel compelled, they just won't vote for number two? Okay. Any other questions on other items? Roll call?
Alexander,
Me too, because I'm completely confused.
so we get.
We have a motion and a second on the floor, but we can entertain another motion.
Engler,
Everything, yes, except for C2.
Astonik,
Everything, yes, used about C2 also, so I'm voting no on that.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes.
Mr. President, everything passed on a 8-0 vote, with the exception of C2, which passed on a 5-3 vote. I have 16 minutes, number 1 on page 4.
Motion by Mr. Costello, second by Mr. Bennett. Questions or comments? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Astonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes.
Item 60, reports 1 through 5 on pages 4 and 5.
Do I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bennett, second by Mrs. Ahern. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes.
Item 6F, refund subtracted from expenditures, number 1 on page 5.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kostelnik,
Second.
second by Mrs. Ahern. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Cosenza. Still ready. Blazevich.
Yes.
Item 5G, invoices, numbers. They were all.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Marshall? Marshall, second by Mr. Mattis. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes.
Item 6H, requisitions and other, there were 2 executive sessions last month on the 15th and the 22nd, both were brought.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kostelnik,
Second.
second by Mr. Bennett. Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes.
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jim. 7, district operations.
Yes, Mr. President, we'd like to recommend to the board the creation of 2 elementary cyber school teaching positions for the 21-22 school year. A K through 5 math coach for the 21-22 school year, and also a literacy coach, K through 5 for the 21-22 school.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Marshall, second by Mrs. Ahern. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes. 8, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under A, student services, we have nothing this evening. Under B, student activities, we have 3 activities. 1 will be retro, and 2 are upcoming. The STARS activities with the American League and the rafting trip for the junior ROTC, and also on there is the Naval Air Station trip for the ROTC. Under number 2, we have nothing there. Under C, buildings and grounds, we have facility uses, we have the swimming pool, the cafeteria for banquet, cheerleading practices through May. Also in May, the orchestra concert, reception, track, NHS recognition ceremony, football conditioning, and field usage.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Ahern, second by Mrs. Kostelnik. Questions or comments? Roll call.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandrov,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Pistonik,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes. 9, professional personnel.
Yes, under D, Mr. President, we're asking the board to approve the following list of teachers for our ESY program this summer, as well as our COVID compensatory tutoring program. Also, number 3, we're asking the board to approve a staff accountant position at the annual salary of $55,000. And also number 4, we're asking for the second staff accountant at the salary of $55,000.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Mr. Mattis. Questions or comments?
Question, Mr. Effort, can you just explain what 3 and 4, what their job duties are gonna be?
Yeah, sure. One will take over the vacated duties of Kathy Evans, who is retiring. Will be assigned some other tasks yet to be determined. And the other person will be the payroll backup and sort of oversee support payroll. It will, that individual is going to do all the purchasing for me.
So these two people, they have more of an accounting background so that they can be more of a help.
Yes.
And they both bring some different qualities. One of the gentlemen is already in governmental accounting. Another one is coming from the auditing field. So they sort of both have two different backgrounds, which are both needed here, you know, for quality control, inventory, asset tagging, and so forth. So these two new positions bring a lot to the table, Mr. President.
Excellent.
And the second one will be working with the cafeteria department, reconciling their accounts and various things.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Mr.
Mr.
Bennett.
Wilson, Mr. President, either you foresee these gentlemen acting as transportation director once we get through our current contract, or does it make it another way?
I believe that's something we're looking at, Mr. Marshall, to have report as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Bennett, the Personnel Committee had an opportunity to talk with both of these individuals and ask them questions as well, so. Other questions? Roll.
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandra,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Stelnick,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes. 10, non-certified personnel.
Yes, under letter A, we have 1 through 10. These are all employees requesting unpaid leaves. Nothing under B and C, and under D, we have hiring and transfers. 1 through 3 are custodial transfer or bidding on new positions and movement. Number 4 through 8 are cafeteria personnel who are moving positions. And number 9 through 12 are paraprofessionals who are taking new positions and also requesting to be part of our ESY and COVID compensatory tutoring program during the summer as well. Letter E, I recommend the board to approve a 1-year contract extension for both school police officers, which will run from July 1st to June 30th of next year.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mattis, second by Marshall. Questions or comments?
I'd like to just comment on Officers Eagle and Gunther. I'm glad to see you in district keeping them for another year. I fully support Mr. Bennett to have an armed police officer in every one of our buildings as we go forward. Bill, I got you. I'm with you 110%. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandra,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Stelnick,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis.
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes. 11, athletic personnel.
Mr. President, we have nothing under leave of absence. B, resignation. The second assistant band director, resignation effective April 26th. Hiring a middle school assistant football coach effective May 21st.
I think that's all, huh?
That's it.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Bennett,
Second.
second by Mrs. Ahern. Question or comments? Roll call?
Ahern,
Yes.
Alexandra,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Engler,
Yes.
Stelnick,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Mattis,
Yes.
Blazevich.
Yes. 12, substitutes.
Mr. President, we have nothing under 12 substitutes, and we have nothing under 13 conferences. That concludes my report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Solz. 14, board president's correspondence. There was none. 15, executive session discussion. We discussed personnel and legal matters. 16, board reports. Committee reports were given in the work session last week. Steel Center report.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The third Alice drill took place today at Still Center. All parents had been notified before it happened. It was reported last month at Southeast Special School, Mon Valley. Their in-person graduation was June 3rd. That was a mistake on my minutes. It is June 8th on the school field, approximately 7 p.m. Still Center recognition ceremony is Wednesday, June 2nd, 7 to 8 p.m. at Baldwin High School Stadium. Our fourth quarter extra effort winners is Carmen Briegel, cosmetology, Jason Huntoon, electrical construction, Jalen Kelly, health assistant, Justin Martin, welding. Our April co-ops are Damian Calvert for Dean Honda and Dalton Kennedy for Monroe Auto Service. We'd like to thank these businesses for supporting our children. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. 17, solicitors report.
My report was given in executive session.
Thank you, Krisha. Welcome, Mr. Madam. 18, old business.
But just one thing to
Sure.
act on what we talked about last week, or last month. This is the last meeting we're gonna have an update on the procedure we're gonna do.
We're still pushing for the outside ceremony, Mr. Wiggins. Mrs. Ahern just asked this evening the number of tickets will be available. Mr. Sullivan, I do not have that worked out. I believe Mr. Wiggins saying between 4 and 6 possible.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
People keep asking us.
So that is one second.
One session.
Thank you.
Did you say 4 tickets?
Mr. Wiggins said 4 to 6 tickets, but we don't have a definite number.
Oh, okay.
So that's-
I need to read that.
I'm assuming your planning's around kind of the changing COVID rules and everything else that's happening.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any other old business? Any new business?
The car, so supposed to put a line in, just to paint a line so the cars know where to stop, so they're all in a straight line, and the team was right on it. And I called up, told them, pothole right in our middle school parking lot.